All right, let's discuss the second house and the ninth house. And then once we're clear about what they each represent, let's talk about how to interpret combinations between the two of them. How can two houses combine, you ask? Well, there's a simple way and there's a less obvious way. The simple way is if the lords of the houses combine. So for example, if the second lord goes into the ninth house, or the ninth lord goes into the second house, or the second and ninth lords join somewhere or mutually aspect each other. Those would be ways that you could get interactions between the second and the ninth house, and that's what we're going to explain in the video. What is the implication of those combinations? The less obvious way that the second and ninth house may combine is by working together in sequence in terms of how prominent they are in a chart. So in other words, if the most prominent house in the chart is the second, for example, and then the second most prominent is the ninth, then these two are actually in sequence of how important they are in a person's life. So they'll be supporting each other or working each other. In that case, the ninth would be supporting the second. So that's the second way, the less obvious way that two houses can work together, and it's a little bit complex. It's quite complex, actually, to calculate this. So if you're very interested in that, I have a report called The Houses of Life, which is available at my website, vicdecara.com, with a /H if you don't want to click around to find it. That will evaluate all of your houses according to classical rules and will produce a code, like a DNA code of your house sequences. And you'll be able to see which house is the most prominent, second most prominent, third prominent, etc. So if you are interested in seeing that, please go and order one of those reports. Now, let's get on with the show. Let's talk first about what each house represents. The second house, we've been doing quite a few of these so far. This is the second and ninth, so we've done second and first, second and second, second and third, etc. It's literally the area of sky that's below the eastern horizon. So it's literally the sky which is in the ground below the eastern horizon. So it represents things that support the east. The east represents visibility because it's the place where the sun rises. Visibility means coming into being, like beginning to be known is visibility. The sun begins its journey in the east. So the east represents beginning and visibility. The second house supports those things. So basically the second house is the foundation that we have in life. Just like the sky below the eastern horizon is the foundations on which the eastern horizon is built. The foundations are the things that allow stuff to come into being. Right? The foundations of a building allow the building to stand. So that's what the second house represents, all the foundations and thus all of our stability. Three very important specifics about foundations is the first one is the family. The family is a foundation that we're born from and that we rely on. Right, so the second house really represents family, and not just blood family, but everybody who plays the role of family. In other words, everybody that actually supports us or helps us at their own expense. Another important implication of foundations is your money. Not just your spending money or your pocket change, but like your basic financial bracket. The amount of wealth that you basically have all the time. That will be indicated by the second house because the wealth is the foundation upon which we do any of our projects or our activities. And the third important permutation of foundations is health. The health is the thing that you draw from to be able to engage in activities. You need your vitality to be able to do any activities. So the vitality and health is foundational to everything else in life. Hence, the second house represents health, wealth, family, and other types of foundations that provide stability. There's a couple of other things that the second house represents because the east is not just beginning but also visibility. So pro-visibility means being able to see things. That means knowing things. So the second house represents knowledge. And also something which can be seen is something which is real. So if the second house is pro-visibility, it means it's pro-realism. So the second house signifies our down-to-earthness, right? That's exactly what the second house is, right? It's the sky that's in the ground below the eastern horizon. It represents our practicalness, our realisticness, our down-to-earthness. So that's the second house. If you can digest and internalize all that information, then you really know everything that you'll ever really need to know about the second house. Anything else you'll be able to figure out from that basis. Let's do the same thing for the ninth house so that we can understand the ninth house just as well. So, as with any house, the symbolism, the things that it symbolizes are based on what it actually is. What is the ninth house actually? It's the sky that's overhead, and it's the western border of the overhead sky. So, the overhead sky indicates things which are visible or external. So, the upper part of the sky represents karma or actions. And the western border of actions, west represents other people. So, the western border of the upper sky, in other words, the ninth house, it represents how our actions pertain to or benefit other people. So, the basic nature of what the ninth house represents is good deeds. Deeds which benefit others. And another way of expressing that is good character, the kind of character of a person who would do good deeds. And that's really the essence of the ninth house. This is why the ninth house is the house for morality or morals. And then other things about the ninth house are also just derived from this. Like, for example, this is the house of religion or education. Why? Because religion and education are just ways of transmitting sets of morals. We get educated about what is right and what is wrong, or what is good and what is bad. When it's secular, it's called education or science, and when it's God-based, then it's called religion. Also, another permutation on the word religion is philosophy. That's the same basic thing. And another permutation on the word education is upbringing. Now, this leads to another important subject that the ninth house pertains to, which is the people who educate you. All of those educators. That includes your parents. The ninth house is actually quite relevant to family. And this is going to be important when you consider how the second house interacts with the ninth house. The ninth house is quite relevant to family because all of our educators initially are our family. So the upbringers, the parents, the grandparents, those are the ninth house. The teachers that you have at school, the teachers that you get through whatever media, YouTube, television, anything, gurus, priests. And there's one final thing about the ninth house which we should mention. People call it the good luck house. Why is it the good luck house? Because luck is not a roll of a dice. Luck is the result of an action. The result of an action is the fruition of the action is luck. So if the action is good, then the fruition is good. So since the ninth house is the house of good deeds, which means, caring about how your actions affect others, then it's also the house of good results or good destiny or good luck, because good deeds produce good luck. All right, now we have a really good understanding of the second house and the ninth house and what they independently represent. Now we're well equipped to discuss how to interpret what happens when they combine. So the way that we would evaluate this is the same way we would evaluate anything. If you watch any of my videos, you see I constantly use the same technique, which is that you look for where the two objects, like in this case the second house and the ninth house, you look to see where they are going to talk about the same thing. And then you just ask yourself, are they talking about the same thing in complementary ways or contradictory ways? Where the two things involved talk about one thing in the same way, it produces consistent good results. Where they talk about it in contradictory ways, it produces confusing, difficult results. So in the case of the second and the ninth house, we're not going to find any contradictory things about how these houses combine. This is actually a very nice set of houses to combine. The first thing to bring to your attention is family. So I can express it here as family and morals, but you can see in the tree about what the ninth house represents, how morals really includes religion, education, which really includes parents, which really includes family. So really, you could say second house is family, ninth house is family. This person is moral. And what does it mean to be moral? Well, one thing it means is they're dutiful. In other words, they do what they're supposed to do, dutiful. They will be kind, which means they will care about how their actions impact others, especially their immediate family. And they'll be generous. They'll be giving of their time. Their actions will be disposed to be supportive of others. And hence, this is a good combination to indicate a person who has a happy family. You may ask, does that mean they're born to a happy family or they make a happy family? Frankly speaking, usually it's indistinguishable. Another important thing about the second and the ninth house and what they do when they interact is that the second is the house of knowledge. Well, that rings a bell when you consider that the ninth is the house of education. So here, the second and ninth are talking about the same thing, and they're both talking about it in the same way. They're pro-education. They're good with education. So what you expect in a chart where the second and ninth lords combine is that the person is educated. So other ways to say that is they're learned or scholarly. Also, if you're learned, then you become expert. And if you're expert, that means that you know a lot about things and you even know how to do things. And the third thing that is very important, the second, is the house of wealth. The ninth, is it the house of wealth? Yes, because it's the house of results. Results means success. Success means profit or abundance or surplus. Surplus means wealth. So these two houses are really very much on the same page when it comes to wealth. They're both very pro-wealth. Hence, in the native, with the combination of the second and ninth house, expect wealth. And what do we really mean about wealth? Not even really theoretical wealth or like a person with a lot of money in a bank. More like practical wealth, like a person that actually has nice property. A nice house, a nice couch, a nice bed, a nice TV, a nice computer, etc. They actually have good, real things. So those are the most essential three things to bear in mind when interpreting the effects of combining the second house and the ninth house. I want to just not finish this video until I say this one very important thing, which is consider the circumstances under which the second and ninth lord combine. If the second and ninth lords, by combining, go into debilitation, it's not going to be as rosy. If they go into exaltation, it's going to be even better. Stuff like that. If they're combining in the 10th house, it's going to be more obvious in the native than if they're combining in the 8th, where it's going to be somewhat hidden. Stuff like that you have to bear in mind when you're talking about combinations of lords. And similarly, when you're talking about sequences of houses, like what you get from the house report that I mentioned earlier, when you analyze all the houses and you put them in order, in that case, it's pretty simple here. 2 followed by a 9, second house being most prominent, ninth being next, is just basically the same as ninth followed by a second. It's not like other houses where it made a big difference. The only thing that you need to know is you can also get these two houses to be important, not if they're in sequence, but if they're on opposite ends of the house code. So in that case, if 2 is on one side and 9 is on the other side, then you're going to actually have clashes on these topics. So in that chart, where 2 and 9 are on opposite ends, you would have negative versions of all these 3 areas. Okay, I hope that was very interesting. You could see a little bit about how astrology works. You can see how it's very systematic, very simple, and it can get very complex right away and very sophisticated just with these simple points. You don't have to go into a million, billion, complicated, convoluted techniques to be able to get pretty damn sophisticated. So if you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in a comment. Subscribe to the channel. Ring the bell so you get the notifications. And stick around. I like to have people like you on my channel. Thank you.